Becky pulled her coat tighter, breath fogging as she crossed the square. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold and from adrenaline. Tonight was the night everything would change. She had rehearsed the moment in the mirror 1,000 times, smoothing words that would slice clean and precise. She had a plan that would topple the woman who, in Becky's view, had everything: the company, the respect, the calm that people mistook for invulnerability. Carla Connor was a force, and Becky had been bruised by that force for as long as she could remember. Now, finally, Becky believed she could take back whatever it was the world had taken from her. At Roy's Rolls, the queue was half-length. Becky bought a pastry she didn't need and ate it in 3 hungry bites. The urgency hummed in her veins like a second heartbeat. Her phone vibrated. A message from Aiden, a name she'd come to trust without question. He'd arranged the leak. He'd said the documents would be placed where the right eyes would find them. Becky imagined newspapers aflame, headlines screaming while Carla's empire cracked. The thought made a cold smile play on her lips. But schemes have edges you don't notice until you catch one. Becky's plan was not born in malice alone. It had been fed by whispered suggestions in a bar, the half-jest of a friend, the slow accumulation of slights that made things add up. She had convinced herself of a righteousness she could not fully account for. It's easier that way, to be hero and villain simultaneously when you tell yourself the story enough. Carla, meanwhile, stood at the window of the underworld office, a cup of tea warming her hands, oblivious to the small gears clicking into place elsewhere. She had spent the afternoon running through supplier lists and client notes, her mind a ledger of obligations. Recently she'd softened. People said, maybe because of the season, maybe because of the tired lines at the corners of her mouth. But Carla's calm was a kind of armor that had hardened beneath the surface. She had built her life by building things others couldn't. It made her lonely in ways she rarely allowed herself to think about. The leak was as theatrical as Becky had hoped. A local blogger with a taste for controversy found a flash drive tucked inside one of the company's cardboard boxes at the recycling yard. The file, a series of emails, invoices, and edited photographs, suggested a web of favoritism, hush money, and a shadowy personal account. It was the kind of sordid detail that would make readers feel they'd finally been led into a forbidden room. The blogger, hungry for clicks, published it just before midnight on Christmas Eve. Within an hour, the story had spread through the town like spilled mulled wine. Social media erupted. The Rovers was packed with people craning their necks to peer at phones, patrons trading versions like gossiping birds. Carla Connor's private accounts exposed. One headline read, "Corruption at Underworld?" Another asked. Evidence, the files claimed, pointed to payments to silent partners and suspicious transfers. The implications were dramatic, enough for viewers of a soap to clutch their pillows, and enough to make the characters' world tilt. When the first texts hit Carla's phone, the room seemed to breathe in with her. For a beat she simply stared, tea cooling in her hand. Then methodically, she went to work. It was the habit of someone who didn't allow panic to run errands for her. Checking facts was a form of defense. But even as she opened emails and logged into accounts, a deeper, colder panic unspooled behind her eyes. The emails on Becky's flash drive were not entirely fabricated. Some were real correspondences, some legitimate transactions taken out of context, others altered. It was messy and precise, which made it more dangerous. Becky watched from afar as Carla's image flickered across screens and phones. At the bus stop, an old man who always nodded at Becky now frowned. A mother shushed her children when they asked why the Carla woman had done such things. Becky felt a small, satisfying victory. But guilt, like snow melting on a roof, has ways of dripping where you least expect it. Not everyone believed the leak unquestioningly. Michelle hurried over to Carla's office, face a map of worry. "Carla, what's going on?" she asked, eyes flicking to the computer. Carla, for all her outward composure, let out a long breath. "Someone's trying to ruin us," she said. There was no melodrama in the words, only the flat steel of resolve. For all her brimming confidence, Becky had underestimated one thing: people have loyalties that do not dissolve with headlines. Sally, who ran the local cafe, refused to entertain the gossip. She'd done business with Carla for years and trusted the woman's integrity. Roy muttered that rumors were dangerous things. They could burn a person alive when fed to the wrong kindling. And then there was Nick, who had been